There we go. Right. Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining me. I'm really pleased to be able to teach you guys about normal newborn sleep. I think it's just so important to get yourself educated around what's normal, which you all are doing before your babies come. So well done you. To tell you a bit about myself, I'm Stephanie. I'm the founder of Oka Baby. I'm a registered nurse and I have 10 years of experience working in the NICU in the UK. I've also done some work in children's intensive care. I have a sleep certification with Isla Grace Sleep. So I am a certified sleep and wellbeing specialist. I am a certified baby massage instructor, and I also have a college certification in breastfeeding. So as you can probably tell from my accent, I'm from the UK, but I'm currently in Canada, in British Columbia. I married a Canadian and recently moved here. So since the move, have changed my career path slightly from nursing, and I'm now running my company, Oka Baby. So my goal when setting up Oka Baby was to provide a well baby service for families, to give them advice around feeding, general baby care, baby massage, baby wearing, and my most popular service is my sleep coaching. My approach does not use any form of sleep training. So I think it's important to note, because many parents don't realize that there are options outside of either sleep training or waiting it out when it comes to sleep problems. So if this isn't your first baby and you did sleep train previous children, I want you to know that although that's not my approach, I don't judge you. I judge society for making you think that's the only option. But equally, if sleep training was your choice and you felt like it was the right choice for your family, then I'm also very happy for you. But I will talk about sleep training. And I guess this is essentially a trigger warning. I am going to talk about the effects of sleep training briefly during this presentation. So those of you watching live, a couple have already done it, but I'd love to know where you're watching from. Like I said, I'm in British Columbia from the UK. But yeah, let me know where you're watching from. Let me know what you're hoping to get out of this webinar. You can just use the chat box. And okay, so a few more people have joined us now, which is nice. So the reason that I wanted to host this webinar is because in my sleep coaching, I get lots of families who they'll come to me with sleep issues, and their babies are anything from birth to 7 or 8 months old. And although I can give them tools to nudge towards more independent sleep, longer stretches of sleep, ultimately a lot of what I do is educating around normal sleep. And quite often people come to me with issues that are actually just normal infant sleep. And it's just, unfortunately, society has led us to believe that our babies should be sleeping through the night, and it's just not true. So I think we need to shift that perspective around normal infant sleep and what constitutes this elusive good baby. You know, people will have you believe babies feed every 3 hours and they sleep through the night, and it just isn't true. So my hope is that by educating you around what's normal, you'll feel less anxious about whether your own baby is normal when the time comes. And the goal is to just prepare you for what's to come in those first few months. So the main focus of this webinar is just going to be birth to around 4 months, because there's a massive shift at 4 months in sleeping patterns. And it would take me a very long time to talk to you about normal infant sleep across, the spectrum up to toddlerhood. So we're just focusing on those early months. And that's important to bear in mind with some of the information I give you. As your baby grows up, things will change. So I'm going to share my screen with you now. Okay. So what we're going to cover today, I know when you signed up, this was all listed for you, but just to recap, some common sleep myths, and there's a lot out there, and I won't cover all of them, but just the common ones that I come across quite a lot. If you know any, or you have any, or your mother-in-law's told you something about infant sleep, I'd love to hear about it. So again, pop that in the chat box. I am going to be referring back to the box kind of at the end of each section. We're going to cover normal infant sleep patterns, how development affects sleep, tired cues and wake windows, red flags to look out for, because like I said, I have people come to me with sleep issues, and for the most part it's normal, but there are sometimes medical issues. There are red flags that you should be aware of. I'll talk to you about how you can prepare and some strategies to use in those early months for essentially surviving the sleep deprivation. And within that, we'll talk about safe infant sleep and bed sharing. Now, I've popped the Q&A at the end there, but if you have questions as I'm talking, please just write them in the chat box. I'm going to try to come back to it at the end of each section and answer those questions if you have them, or if you want to hold on to them until the end, also fine. So let's bust some common sleep myths. Actually, first, I want to see where you're all coming from, because I asked you to tell me. So let's have a look. Oh, my Zoom won't open now. Stop share. There we go. Okay, Colorado Springs. And I want to learn about effective methods for quality baby sleep. This will be my first child and I know practically nothing. Okay, great. You're in the right place. Hello, I'm in Virginia in the US, looking to learn anything first baby. Great, good open-minded perspective there. I like it, Sarah, thank you. Okay. Right. Our first sleep myth. Self-soothing is normal. There is something wrong with the baby if they can't self-soothe. Not true. And I'll tell you why. The term self-soother was coined by a researcher called Dr. Thomas Anders in the 1970s. And at the time, he used the term to describe a baby waking briefly and then going back to sleep. That same baby, during his observations, could easily have other wakes where they did wake and cry and they did signal for their parents or their caregivers. The problem is the term has caught on and been used incorrectly to describe babies who never signal, or if they do cry, they're able to calm themselves down and fall asleep. And let me tell you, not many of those babies exist. Anders himself has since come out and said that he never meant for the term to be used like this, and has clarified its original meaning. He notes that no babies truly sleep through the night. Babies do have the ability to wake up and fall back asleep, but they have to remain in a calm state to do so. So a baby who's awake, aroused, upset, essentially if they're dysregulated in some way, so if they have a need, if that need is hunger, or if they need a diaper change, or if they simply just need a cuddle, they become dysregulated and they will not be able to self-settle or self-soothe. They require the help of a calm co-regulator to help them settle. The reason that some babies do eventually fall asleep after a period of crying is because their brain simply shuts off as a protection measure from the buildup of too much of the stress hormone cortisol. So it's not a healthy way for a baby to fall asleep, essentially. What I will say is if a baby crying in arms is very, very different from a baby left to cry on their own. And there have been studies done that look into cortisol levels, and a baby who is being co-regulated by a caregiver who's crying, their cortisol levels will be lower than a baby left on their own to cry. So our next sleep myth. Babies' development will be negatively impacted if they don't consolidate sleep quickly. Now, this is one that sleep consultants who use sleep training methods, they'll use this all the time. They'll convince their clients that it's really, really important for babies to consolidate sleep. And again, it's just not true. So a really important thing to remember with babies is that sleep fragmentation does not equal sleep deprivation. So it might do for us as parents, but for babies, it's developmentally normal. And it does not have a negative impact on their development. Babies can feed and sleep at the same time. So while we're awake feeding them, getting tired from all the broken sleep, the baby is actually still getting the sleep that they need. Now, where this is not the case is if the total sleep time within 24 hours is consistently too low. And then you get a chronically overtired baby. But that's very, very rare. And ultimately, if their sleep total hours are appropriate, then development should not be affected by broken sleep. Okay, next one. You'll spoil your baby if you always pick them up. I feel like this is quite an old one. And I do feel that people are realizing more and more that that's not true, but it's something you do still hear. So to put it simply, you cannot spoil a baby. Babies signal to their caregivers when they have a need, and that might be hunger, it might be for warmth, it could be because they're bored, it could be because they simply need physical contact, so a cuddle basically. And these are valid needs, and babies do not have the cognitive ability to manipulate adults. Their brains are not developed enough to be able to consciously manipulate someone. And studies have shown that babies who are cuddled more have positive changes in their DNA and brain structure. So essentially, responsiveness builds healthy brains. So no spoiling there. Okay, our next one. The only way to get more sleep is to sleep train. Now, as a holistic sleep coach who doesn't use sleep training, I'm sure my clients will attest that this just isn't true. I've got families, lots of sleep without sleep training methods. And this one upsets me because so many parents struggle with the realities of baby sleep, but they're told you either sleep train or you wait it out, and it's simply not true. A lot of parents don't want to sleep train, but end up doing it because they think it's their only option. And it becomes traumatic for both parent and baby. One thing to note about sleep training, in my opinion, and that of a growing number of sleep specialists, is that sleep training only masks the symptoms of something else. So the reason it works for some families is that it teaches the baby not to signal when they have needs. They wake up just as frequently, but they've learned that no one comes if they cry, which makes me feel really sad. Okay, this one. Formula-fed babies sleep more. I'm sure we've all heard this one. And it is kind of true for very young babies. And the reason for this is that formula has a protein in it called casein. And casein is more slowly digested than breast milk. So the baby feels fuller for longer and therefore doesn't wake with hunger. Now, this effect doesn't last. And actually, by about 6 months, whether formula or breastfed, babies wake on average about the same amount. So the reason I put this in the myths section is because I think we believe when a baby sleeps longer, so will the parent. But studies that have looked into this found that mothers who are formula-fed babies actually get less sleep than breastfeeders when you take into account the time it takes to prepare the feed, where the baby's fed and where they sleep. So for example, a bed sharing breastfeeding mother doesn't have to get up. She pulls baby in close, pops him on the breast and likely dozes off during the feed. A baby sleeping in a separate room requires mother to wake up, get up, prepare the milk, collect the baby, sit somewhere to feed while remaining awake and resettle baby back in the cot and then go back to bed herself. So you can see the process there for feeding a formula fed baby in the night is a lot longer. Now, that is the two extremes. I understand that, but I think it demonstrates quite nicely that formula does not equal more sleep. And again, same as with sleep training, I don't judge you whether you formula feed or breastfeed, it's personal choice. But if your main choice, your main reason for formula feeding is that you think you'll get more sleep, I'm here to tell you that's not true. So if you were on the fence about it, then I would recommend breastfeeding. Okay, so our next one, babies can learn or be taught to sleep properly. So simply put, sleep is not a skill that's taught, it's a biological function. In the same way that breathing, peeing, pooing are biological functions, and we don't teach our babies how to do them. You can't teach it, but what you can do is ensure that all the baby's needs are met. And I'm talking, again, it's not just, hunger, clean diaper. It's whether their need for closeness is met, all of those things. So you can ensure that all babies' needs are met and that the environment is conducive to sleep in order to help your baby fall asleep. So those are my sleep myths, but I am interested to see if you guys have added any more. So let me just have a little look here. Okay, no one added any more sleep myths. So either you don't know that they're myths or you've been lucky. Right, I'm just going to share with you again. So on to our next section. What does normal infant sleep look like? Okay. Oh, if you have any questions about the myths, like I said, just pop them in the chat box and I'll answer them as we go along. Right. Babies sleep very differently from their parents. They need much more sleep than adults, and they need a lot more co-regulation in order to fall asleep. Newborns can stay awake for as little as a few minutes to a couple of hours. So I'm going to come back to that one when we talk about wake windows, but it's just something to bear in mind. I've seen a lot on social media recently of sleep trainers saying things like, your newborn should only be awake for 45 minutes. Well, every baby's different. So there's no shoulds in baby sleep. It's about what's normal for your baby. Babies before approximately 3 to 4 months do not have a circadian rhythm. So this means that they don't know night and day. And therefore their sleep is fairly evenly spread across 24 hours. And that means that their needs for nourishment, warmth, comfort also don't know night and day. They are 24-hour beings. The reason for this is that they don't start naturally producing the hormone melatonin until around 3 or 4 months of age. So melatonin is one of the hormones that helps us helps signal to our body that it's time to sleep. They rely on mother's melatonin to be passed through the breast milk. Now, babies who are fed directly from the breast are somewhat in sync with mother's patterns. And that's not to say that if you formula feed your baby and they don't get any melatonin that they're never going to sleep. There's lots of other mechanisms within our body that help us fall asleep. Melatonin is just one of them. But it is the main one for helping us with our circadian rhythm, which is why, like I said, babies, 24-hour beings. So babies will generally sleep longer when in close proximity to a caregiver. This one's really important to remember when you've got a baby who just won't be put down and you're probably thinking, what's wrong with my baby? It's a function of evolution that babies need to be close to a caregiver. Your baby doesn't know that they are safe in their crib, even though you know they are. So as a survival mechanism, they wake and they signal to be picked up and comforted. This is a remnant of days when humans lived more primitive lives, close to predators and in harsher conditions. So it is a normal, it's biological, it's the way that babies are wired. Okay, babies wake frequently and have shorter sleep cycles. There's a few reasons they wake so frequently. And I just want to tell you, it is not a sign of your success as a parent how often your baby wakes up. I had a client this morning who had a very normal 4-month-old who was waking appropriate amounts, but she felt like a terrible mum because all her friends were telling her their babies were sleeping, 6-8 hour stretches. And again, every baby is different, and I just really want you to hold on to that as you move into this next phase with, of having your babies. It's not a sign of your success as a parent. So one reason they wake so frequently is because they have very, very small stomachs, and breast milk is digested quickly. Now, compared to animals that nest their young and leave to catch prey, for example, our milk is very low in protein and fat and high in carbohydrate, meaning our babies need very regular feeds. They don't stay very full for long. And another factor, if you're breastfeeding, is that your body will naturally produce more milk between the hours of 2 a.m. and 6 a.m., which is unfortunate, but it's the way that we're designed. And this is because this is when the hormone prolactin is at its highest. So your baby makes the most of this and will feed more at this time. Another reason babies wake regularly is as a protective measure against SIDS. So babies who sleep alone for long periods in a deep sleep are more likely to suffer with SIDS. Light sleep is normal and natural for young babies. They spend more time in light sleep during the second half of the night, which is why they wake more frequently. Again, that 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. kind of window, although that does depend on when their bedtime is. And then more restorative sleep is in the first part of the night. So while light sleep seems like a bad deal for you as parents, as it's often the reason why you're up all the time, it does have its benefits. Active sleep is a healthier, smarter way to sleep. It's optimal for babies to sleep mostly in a lighter state of sleep, especially if their airways are restricted. We want them to wake if they get hungry or if they're cold or if they're not breathing. For their own safety, they wake up. And it's also a time when there's more blood flow to the brain, which is ideal during this time where their brains are rapidly developing. Babies need to sleep in this lighter state of sleep for brain growth, essentially. Now, I'm telling you all this, this is normal. It's normal if your baby wakes a lot, to prepare you for those of you that do have babies that wake a lot. But there are also babies that do sleep long stretches, and that's equally as normal as a baby who wakes every 1 to 2 hours. I think one of the main takeaways I want you to get from this is that there's just such a broad spectrum of normal when it comes to baby sleep. Now, on sleep cycles and on frequent waking, I think I mentioned earlier that Thomas Anders says that no babies truly sleep through the night, but I'm going to show you this screenshot from my Fitbit tracker because it will show you that really no person, no adult, no baby, no child truly sleeps through the night. So you can see here, can I just say this is not an average night for me. I don't usually go to bed this late. You can see here that in the red is how often I've woken up. Now, I probably remember 1 or 2 of these wake-ups. The reason is, as adults, we're able to wake up and fall back asleep without assistance from others, whereas babies need help falling back asleep. So no one truly sleeps through the night. So that's our kind of normal baby sleep. Now, I would love if you can all get involved. If you pop in the chat box and tell me how much sleep you think a baby from birth to 3 or 4 months old, how many hours of sleep you think babies need within 24 hours? I'm very interested to see what people know about this. And then I'll show you on the next slide. Okay, Ali says 12, Sarah says 17. I'm reading these out loud, by the way. I know you can all see them, but for on the replay, the chat box won't show. So anyone watching the chat box, the replay, I just want to make sure they're all involved. 18 to 20, 17 or 19. Okay, so just in your answers, Ali, I feel like I undershot. Well, you'll see. Just in your answers, you can see that there's a huge variation. And you've also all kind of gone on the, other than Ali, on the higher side there, which is interesting. So again, I'm just going to share my screen with you. Okay, so how much sleep does a baby need? It ranges, and this has been shown in studies, it ranges from 8 to 22 hours, which is a huge range, huge. But if you think about adults, you know, we all have different sleep needs as well. And there's no reason that babies should fit into this box of needing, you know, this exact amount of sleep. So, oh, I'll just show you the average here as well. I'm not a lover of averages because I think, again, it boxes babies in, but it's a good guideline at least. So yeah, Ali, you weren't wrong to say 12, nor were the rest of you wrong to say anything as high as, well, I think the highest one was 20. So huge variation. So you can imagine you've got your new baby. Society has told you your baby should be sleeping for more than half the day and feeding every 3 hours, and they're only sleeping 10 hours a day and feeding every 1 to 2 hours. You are going to think there's something wrong with your baby. And it's just, it just feels like such a shame to me that that we're so kind of influenced by these numbers and figures that we're told, and you should be doing this and you should be doing that. And I hope that this shows you that babies just don't fit into one box. Okay, so, and I also hope it just takes some of the worry out of the first few months for you. I think I've already said that, but I'm really keen on this message. Okay, so let's talk about what causes disrupted sleep. Our first one, developmental leaps. Now, you may have heard of these called sleep regressions or sleep progressions. I'm reluctant to label these periods. The first one is typically called the 4-month regression or 4-month progression, depending on what kind of sleep consultant you're talking to. Because what commonly happens is parents start to look out for them. So I see questions all the time, like, is my baby going through the 4-month regression early? They're only 3 months old. And, you know, things like that. Or is my baby going through the 4-month regression late because they're 5 months old? Really, babies hit these milestones at different ages, but you are likely to see the first one of these anywhere from birth to 6 months. Some babies don't even go through them, or if they do go through them, I mean, they all obviously go through developmental changes. Some just don't show any disrupted sleep or any other outward signs of it. So babies go through rapid periods of development in the first year of life, and with that comes disrupted sleep. They will have periods of little growth followed by explosive growth. This is the time when sleep could be affected. Babies' brains do most of their growing while they sleep. So when they're learning a new skill, sleep can become more fragmented, and babies will stay awake for hours at night practicing their new skills. My advice around that is, and I know, like I said at the beginning, I'm just trying to cover the first few months here, but I like this story. So a friend of mine, her 7-month-old had just learned to clap. And she said to me, I wake up in the night and I look at the monitor and he's sat up in bed and he's clapping. So I said to her, practice clapping all day long. When he's awake, just clap with each other all day long. And he should get it out of his system enough that hopefully his sleep won't be so disrupted. And after a few days of doing this, she was like, it worked. He's not up at night clapping anymore. So, you know, when your baby's learning to roll, or if they're starting to babble, just really, really encourage those new skills, encourage practicing them during the day. Okay, so babies also grow in spurts. It's not linear, so they don't gain the exact same amount of weight every single day. Some days they'll gain nothing, and some days they'll gain a lot. So for them, it is like waking up in a new body some days and in a new reality. If you can view these periods of disruption as a leap forward in development and a sign that they're thriving, rather than as a regression in previous sleep skill, it will make the tough times easier to bear if you can shift the perspective away from being disrupted to, wow, look at my baby, they're thriving. I previously mentioned that babies start producing melatonin around 3 or 4 months, and this is often in line with the first of these developmental shifts. Another thing that happens at around 4 months is that baby's sleep needs reduce by an average of 2 hours in 24. So for some babies, that shows as disrupted naps, whereas others' naps are fine, but nighttime sleep becomes difficult. And you can start preparing your baby for these changes very early on by using light and noise to your advantage. So naps shouldn't be in the pitch black and in silence. Get them used to the hustle and bustle of daytime and keep the nights for darkness and quiet. Now, again, every baby's different. Some babies will only nap in the pitch black and in the silence, but if you can try from the beginning to get them used to noise and light, I think it would serve well moving forward. So one of the reasons I think I mentioned at the beginning that I haven't gone beyond 4 months in this presentation is because there is this big shift around 4 months where sleeping patterns change massively. So our next cause for disruption, illness. So we've probably all been there. We can relate to this one. When we're ill, it can throw off our sleeping, eating, any of our daily habits. And babies are no different. So during periods of illness, babies will require a lot of parental support around sleep. And avoiding giving this support will cause more harm than good. So I always say to my clients, you know, if we get on track with sleep and then down the road, you know, you have a period of illness, do what you can to get your baby comfortable into sleep. You can always start working on, I don't like to use the word habits, but if you know, I say to them, if you fall into what you consider a bad habit when they're ill, you can always shift away from it when they're healthy again. Teething. Okay. I think we probably all know about this one, but similar to illness, teething can mean a baby needs more support with sleep. To put it simply, teething can be painful and unpleasant for babies, so they may become more clingy and needy during this time. Sleep is so affected by teething because when they lay flat, they get more blood flow to the head and therefore there's more pressure in the gums. So teething symptoms can be heightened during sleep. So if, to help with this, you can offer them something cold to chew on. You can give their face or their gums a massage, over-the-counter pain relief, and lots of snuggles and cuddles can help. And you may find that baby wants to feed more to ease their discomfort during this time. And our fourth one, sorry. Colic. Now I've put colic in quote marks here because the term colic is a bit of a bugbear of mine, and it's because colic is a label for a baby who's fussy and cries for extended periods of time. And babies are often labeled colicky and parents are told that they'll grow out of it. And that's kind of the end of it for a lot of parents. They just have to put up with this baby who cries all the time. But colic is a symptom. It's not a diagnosis. So it's important to get to the bottom of what's causing the colic, the extended crying, the fussiness. And it could be a tongue tie. It could be food sensitivities or an allergy. It could be that the baby's very gassy. Highly sensitive babies are often more fussy. Babies with reflux. Now, again, reflux is also a symptom of something else. So also should always be investigated. So if your baby is labeled colicky, do not just accept that and move on. It's really vital to get to the bottom of it. And if your healthcare provider doesn't help you with that, then you need to find another healthcare provider, because yes, for the most part, colic isn't just simply a baby crying for no reason. There's usually a reason behind it. And another disruption for sleep is travel across different time zones and the clocks changing. Now, I'm not going to dive into that one too much, because I think it would affect babies, younger babies in those early months, less than it affects older babies. And also there's kind of very specific strategies depending on what time difference you're moving across. So if it's only an hour, not much to worry about, but if you're going 12 hours somewhere, you know, more of a change. So I'm not going to dive into that one, but I do have a blog on my website about the clocks changing. So just something for you all to bear in mind. You can refer back to when that time comes with your baby. So that's our disrupted sleep. Now I am just going to look and see if anyone has asked me any questions. And you haven't. Either I'm providing you with lots of information or I'm not inspiring you to ask anything. So oh, what have I done here? Sorry, folks. Our next one, tired cues and wake windows. Okay, so those watching live, I'd love if you can write in the chat what you think some tired cues are. So by that, I mean what signs your baby might give you to show that they're tired. And then I'll show you some on the next slide. So when your baby arrives, you may find yourself questioning every little detail of their day. And one that consumes new parents is, how long should baby be awake for? And how do I know if they're tired? So I do not recommend putting babies on set schedules for feeding and eating. My approach encourages being responsive to their needs in the moment. And that means learning what your baby's unique individual cues are, because every baby is different. So I mentioned earlier that in those first few months, babies can stay awake for as short as a few minutes and as long as a few hours. Wake windows are useful when we know our baby's general pattern, if they even develop one, for predicting when they might need their next sleep. However, I would encourage you early on to learn your baby's tired cues and follow those for finding the sleep sweet spot. So I'm going to just, some of you have responded, so I'm just going to have a look here and see what you're all saying. Yawning, stretching, rubbing their face, fussing. You guys are going to be very interested in the next slide. So this next slide is going to give you some idea of just how varied tired cues can be. Now, this list is quite comprehensive, and it does cover slightly older children as well. So some of them you might be like, oh, how would a 2-month-old be able to do that? But it's just quite a comprehensive list. What I should say is, oh, sorry, the ones in the second column, by the way, are what we consider to be late cues. And they may mean that you've missed the sleep sweet spot. Now, that doesn't mean you won't get your baby off to sleep. It just means it might be a bit harder. So there's quite a lot there. I'm not going to read all of them. Oh, I should have mentioned as well, all the information from this webinar is going to be available in a handout after the webinar, and you will have been sent a link to that. But I'll come back to that at the end. Anyway, my point is, I'm not going to read all of these. You will get a copy of all of these. So like I said, second column are the late cues, and they're the ones that we look out for. So yawning, rubbing eyes, scratching face, you've kind of mentioned all of those ones. But yawning surprisingly is a late one. Some of the ones from the early ones, redness around the eyes, eyes look glossy or sleepy, grunting noises or breathing changes, staring off into space. I think that's quite a common one. One I didn't know until I read this was jittery, jerky movements, wanting to be held more. So the ones I was saying for older children, things like looking for a lovey, wanting a bottle when it's not feeding time. So you can see there's a huge variation in them. But another really important note is that these cues can actually also indicate a whole range of other needs, including hunger, overstimulation, or boredom. And it's about learning what's unique to your baby. Yawning is actually a quite common one for babies that are overstimulated. So if you think, oh, he's yawning, but he's only just got up, it might be because he needs to be removed from the environment because it's just too stimulating for him. So like I said, they can indicate a whole bunch of things, and it's about learning about your own baby. So I can see another message in the chat there. Are the jittery, jerky movements because the baby's body is falling asleep and they are startling themselves awake again? So the startle reflex is something different. So when I'm talking about tired cues, it's more the signals that they're giving you before they actually start falling asleep. Whereas what you're talking about here, when they start to fall asleep and they maybe kind of twitch a bit, or they startle and they throw their hands out, that is a reflex, and it's called the Moro reflex. And it's a remnant of evolution, and it's from the times when our babies would have clung to us when, as primates, we would have had longer hair. So it's from then, and essentially what they do is if they hear a loud noise or anything that kind of gives them a fright, they throw their arms out and then they go like this, and that's them grabbing onto their caregiver, making sure that their caregiver's close by and that they're safe. So it would be a different kind of jitteriness if they were just trying to indicate to you that they were tired. I hope that makes sense, Heidi. Reflexes is a whole other thing, although that's a good point actually that you brought that, the startle reflex, because new parents do find the startle reflex does come quite a lot for new babies, and what we tend to do is swaddle them to try and prevent that, because they do wake up from that startle. Now, there are some people who believe that if you swaddle them, then you're not helping them work that reflex out of their system, so they're actually affected by it for longer. There are two schools of thought, and I'm not really sure where I sit, to be honest. But based on a couple of occupational therapists, I know, yes, it's a bit of a controversial topic, but if you can encourage the reflexes at appropriate times, it will help them work it out of their system a bit quicker. So I'm just going to share with you again, and we will move on to red flags. So although this presentation is about normal sleep, and I want you to kind of focus on that and knowing that your baby is normal. I do want to touch on some red flags, because despite me giving you all this information, there will be times in those first few months where your question, is this normal? Should I be worried? And when parents come to me looking for sleep solutions, the first thing I do is rule out possible medical problems, because if I'm giving parents solutions and strategies to help extend sleep or encourage independent sleep, we don't want to be fighting against the baby's physiology if they've got something medical going on that's keeping them awake. So the first thing to do is make sure there's nothing else going on. So I also think it's really important to raise awareness of these just anyway. You'll be surprised at some of them, and you're probably, again, it's a societal cultural thing, is that we think some of them are cute, but I don't think they are. So the first one, I haven't made a slide for these, so I'm just gonna chat to you without the slides. The first one is snoring. Snoring is not normal. I don't think it's cute, and it can indicate an obstruction in the airway. Now, this could be enlarged adenoids and tonsils. It could be a tongue tie or a lip tie. I will note that in the first few days, newborns can be a bit congested. Sometimes they still have a bit of fluid around from delivery. So they may sound snuffly or they may snore a little bit, but I would start to be concerned if they always snore. So after that normal period of congestion, if as they get older they start snoring, I highly recommend getting them checked out, because it's not normal. Another one is mouth breathing. So, and can I just say, this applies to adults too. It's not normal that we snore. It means there's something wrong. And the same with mouth breathing when we're asleep. So the only time we should breathe through our mouths is when we're speaking, during exercise, when we do need to get more air into our lungs, and obviously if we have a cold and we physically can't breathe through our nose, that's appropriate because it's temporary. But if you have a baby who always breathes through their mouth, again, it's an indication that there's an obstruction somewhere in the airway. And the reason that they'll start mouth breathing is because, and the reason it affects sleep is basically they'll fall asleep, they'll be breathing through their nose, and then their brain registers, I'm not getting enough oxygen, because there's some kind of blockage there in the airway. So they open their mouth and they breathe through their mouth. So that's an indication that there's not enough oxygen getting in there. Now, if they're not mouth breathers, but they do have one of these blockages, like I said, it could be a tongue tie, it could be enlarged tonsils, they'll just wake very frequently, because again, their brain will get, I'm not getting enough oxygen, I need to wake up. So then they wake up and they take a deeper breath, and then you've got a baby who's awake who needs resettling. Oh, when I say tongue tie, what do I mean? Okay, so basically tethered oral ties are fibrous tissue somewhere in the mouth that essentially shouldn't be there. So a tongue tie is where you've got a connection between the bottom of the tongue and the floor of the mouth. Now, most people are aware of them because they cause breastfeeding issues, or they can cause breastfeeding issues. Less people are aware of the implication it can have on sleep. So when any of us, but when our babies sleep, their tongue should be resting on the top of their mouth. And if they've got a tongue tie, and it's tight, then it can prevent that from happening. So when they sleep, the tongue, rather than sitting nice and high in the palate, can flop back a bit to the back of the mouth, and that's what causes that airway blockage. And then a lip tie, the same thing, except there's a connection there between the top lip and the gum. I would say I see less issues with lip ties, but again, that can cause breastfeeding issues as well. Sometimes I'll have clients whose babies are older, who the breastfeeding journey's been fine, and therefore no tongue tie has been suspected. And actually, down the line, we're seeing sleep issues. So unfortunately, tongue tie is not routinely checked for, certainly not in the UK and newborn check. And my understanding from clients from other countries is that it's not routinely checked for unless there's a breastfeeding problem. So just something to be aware of. Whether or not they are treated is kind of up to the physician overseeing them. I hope that answered your question, Ellie. So that one was mouth breathing. Okay, so other red flags: gagging or choking during sleep, pauses in breathing, or chronic congestion. Like I said, newborns will have a bit of congestion, but as they get older, we don't want to see that always there. They're all signs that they need their airway checking. Other symptoms to be aware of that are red flags, as I explained earlier: colic, excessive gas and bloated tummy, and eczema. Now, a lot of us think that eczema is just a skin condition, but actually eczema can be a sign of a food sensitivity or something else going on, and they can all disrupt sleep. Eczema, it can be very uncomfortable, so babies wake up more when they've got it. Now, although all these symptoms I'm describing to you are common, that doesn't mean they're normal, and it doesn't mean there's no treatment. It means that we just need to get to the bottom of what's causing them. Babies who cannot sleep flat may have reflux, and as I mentioned, reflux is usually a symptom of something else. But again, I do have clients come to me with, their baby just won't lay flat in the crib. They need to be on an incline, or they need to be held in an upright position to be able to sleep. So again, that's just a red flag to look out for. And then to know, as I'm glad you asked me to explain tongue tie, because I guess I just assume everyone knows what it is, but babies with tongue or lip tie, or babies who've had a traumatic delivery, are likely to have tension elsewhere in the body. So something like torticollis, which is where one side of the neck is a bit tighter and the baby only will face one way. Babies with tension elsewhere often present as colicky babies, and it's not always visually obvious that they've got this bodily tension going on. So my best advice would be to see an osteopath or a chiropractor who specializes in babies. It can work wonders for sleep to get their body adjusted, and it's all very, very gentle. So I do want to emphasize that I'm talking about what's normal for the first few months only here. So it's important to tell you another red flag for me is for a baby over 6 months who's still having hourly wakes. Just something to bear in mind as your baby gets older. Hourly wakes are not normal for older babies like they are for younger babies. And there's various reasons this could happen, including much of what I've just covered. So I'm just seeing if we've got any more questions, and we have not. So I'm sure this is the bit you've all been waiting for. I'm going to talk to you about some strategies and solutions for those first few months. Now, I did say I don't want you to believe that your only option is wait it out, but if everything's normal and if you've ruled out any of the red flags that I've talked to you about, then waiting it out, knowing that it's just a phase, and knowing that it's normal can help. Adjust your expectations. So, or try not to have expectations. One of the key things to surviving the sleep deprivation that comes in those early months is adjusting your expectations and perspectives, which I hope this webinar has helped you do. I really hope that once you understand normal infant sleep, you will feel better about how your baby sleeps, and you'll worry less and you'll be able to enjoy them more. You can try harmonizing sleep patterns, align parent and baby sleep. Now, this one is a bit like the whole sleep when the baby sleeps, which I always laugh at a bit, because it's like, okay, do laundry when the baby does laundry. I mean, you know, you can't always sleep when the baby's sleeping. I get that. But if you are on maternity leave and you don't have any strict scheduling commitments, I think it's reasonable to adjust your sleep pattern to try and get your maximum sleep when your baby is sleeping. So, for example, some babies don't settle for the night until 10 or 11 p.m. So that may become your new bedtime, but you can just plan for a later lazy morning to make up for it. Okay, eliminate anxiety, keep negative thoughts under control. So when you're tired and sleep deprived, it's easy to descend into a negative thought spiral. An example of this is thinking, my baby won't let me put them down, or my baby won't sleep in their cot. And it's helpful to reframe it and say something like, my baby feels at home in my arms, or my baby sleeps where they feel safest. Because when a caregiver is anxious or stressed, babies mirror this feeling and they stay on high alert. They're biologically wired to do this. And it's because in our more primitive days, we faced much more immediate danger and threat to survival. I think tigers round every corner. So if a parent was on high alert, baby would naturally stay awake to stay safe. So that, you know, they think mummy's anxious, there must be danger nearby. Now is not a safe time to sleep. So approach sleep time with calmness if you can. It can help to have a mantra in your mind for the tough times. Something like, you can cry and it will not upset me. You are a helpless tiny person who needs my love and affection. And you don't have to say these out loud, and you'll find something that suits you. But just having a kind of an internal monologue during those really tough times in the middle of the night can definitely help you stay calm. Prepare to be nap trapped. Have snacks, water, and a phone charger on hand in places you're most likely to feed and or settle your baby for a nap, because contact napping it can really help extend naps. Like I said, babies generally sleep longer when they're in close proximity to a caregiver, and I quite often see questions from parents who, why my baby will only sleep 20 minutes in their crib, but they'll sleep 2 hours on me. Perfectly normal. Just prepare for it. Just, again, it's about shifting your mindset and appreciate the 2 hours of just lying there, rather than thinking, oh my gosh, the washing up needs doing. And again, I understand the realities of life, and it's not always that easy, but if you can shift your mindset a bit, it will definitely make you feel better. Build a village of support. So I know it's tough right now with the pandemic, but it's vital that you set yourself up with support for those early months, whether it's having a friend that you know you can always call just to vent, or if you're privileged enough to hire someone who can help you clean and cook. It's so important to make sure that you have that support available. Now, I think one of the key things is your support people need to know that what's supportive is coming and cooking you a meal, or helping you with housework. What's not as supportive is coming and holding your baby while you do all those things, because you need to be the one holding your baby. You need to be the one bonding with your baby, and you need to rest after you've given birth. So by support, I mean find someone that will do all the chores for you. And emotional support is very important as well. So this is a good one for preparing. Talk about your expectations with your partner. So for those who are currently expecting, I advise you have this conversation now. Make sure you both know what to expect from each other during the nights. I've always told my husband he won't have to do much at night, as I hope to breastfeed. But as the birth gets closer, I have adjusted my thoughts on this, and I've talked to him about it. And you know, what I expect from him at night, and whether that's just him waking up to give me a bit of moral support or whether he takes on all the diaper changes. Just make sure you're on the same page as your partner. Oh, I've got one on my notes here that I have not put in the presentation, so I'm just going to read it to you. Create the perfect environment for your baby to fall asleep. So I want to just point out that every baby's different and there is no one perfect environment. But what I mean by this is if barriers to sleep are removed, so such as overstimulation, baby being left on their own to fall asleep, then the baby will sleep. Remove things that emotionally wind up the baby move baby to a different environment, help baby to dial down the things that are stopping them from going to sleep, and provide comfort and cuddles. So try not to force sleep. If all their needs are met, and that includes needs for closeness and comfort, not just a full tummy and a clean diaper, and they've built up enough sleep pressure in that they are tired enough, then they will sleep. But it's about ensuring the environment is conducive to helping them fall asleep. So my next one, baby massage. I'm such an advocate for baby massage, and it's because I've seen firsthand the wonderful effect it has. It can do wonders for sleep. So I highly recommend finding a class near you. But if things are still shut down with the pandemic when your baby comes, sign up for one of my online classes when your baby is here. Baby wearing. Now, I don't think enough can be said for it. It's a lifesaver for a lot of people whose baby will only sleep in arms. It leaves your hands free to get stuff done, but keeps your baby close to you. Some people don't get on with it, and they say their baby doesn't like it. But most of these cases are simply because they have the wrong carrier or the wrong fit. My colleague here at Oka Baby can help with this, and she does offer pre and postnatal baby wearing education to help you find the perfect carrier for you and for your family's lifestyle. So we also post lots of baby wearing stuff on our Instagram as well, so follow along. And then my last one for surviving the 4th trimester is bed sharing. Now, you also may have heard it called co-sleeping. I know this is a very controversial topic, but I do believe that bed sharing can be done safely. And it can make the difference between a zombie mum and a functioning mum. Each country will have their own recommendations on safe bed sharing, so it's really important that you familiarise yourself with your local policies and guidelines. However, more and more agencies are coming out with safe bed sharing advice. And the reason for this is that it's very likely that parents will end up bed sharing out of necessity in those first few months, or they may accidentally fall asleep with baby in bed. Now, unfortunately, because it's frowned upon based on flawed evidence, parents do not always admit that they bed share, and therefore they aren't offered information on how to do it safely. So, and that's where problems arise. So I want to refer you to a couple of resources that will help you prepare your bed space for those inevitable nights when baby comes to bed with you, or you're so tired you fall asleep in bed with baby, or even if you want to bed share and you just want to know, you're planning to do it from the get-go. I am. And you just want to know how to do it safely. So I recommend familiarizing yourself with La Leche League's Safe Sleep 7, which I have listed here. And you can also look at the Lullaby Trust and their information on co-sleeping. If you're keen to bed share and you want to know a lot more detail, then I actually recommend this book. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. Safe Infant Sleep by James McKenna is a really, really good resource for setting up your bed space safely. I'm gonna stop my share here and join you all. So what works for each baby will be different, and a one-size-fits-all approach is very, very unhelpful. I want to encourage you to trust your gut. So your instinct will get you very far in parenting. If something doesn't feel right, always reach out for help. Try to avoid Googling too much. It will convince you that your baby is not normal. Seek help from trusted professionals, but be wary of the ones who say your baby should be sleeping through the night, or that you should schedule feeds, or that you should sleep train. They are either not well educated around normal biological sleep, or they have a product to sell. I also want to note, be wary of products that tell the main selling point is that your baby will sleep longer. So for example, I was talking to some colleagues about the Snoo bassinet. Lactation consultants hate it, and the reason is it has all these functions that help get the baby back off to sleep when they wake up. And what we're seeing in breastfeeding mothers is that it causes a dip in their supply of milk, because we should be feeding our babies on demand. So if they wake up hungry, but then they're rocked back to sleep, our body doesn't know we still need to produce that milk, so then it stops producing. So just something to be aware of. I do think there is a place for these products when we've got more than one child, or you do need that extra sleep, but I think you just need to use them with caution. And also just be aware of which products are actually even deemed safe for sleep. So for example, the Nests that you can get, they're not safe for sleep. They're safe for a baby laying in them awake, or supervised sleep, but they're not safe for bed sharing, or for putting in a crib, or for leaving a baby alone to sleep. So just familiarize yourself with those products as well. So that's everything from me. Do you have any more questions? If you do, please put them in the chat box. I think I have kind of covered all the ones you've asked me so far. So thank you for watching. Oh, not a question, just a thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for watching. I would love if you guys, in fact, I'm going to put the info up for you here. If you are on Instagram or Facebook, then come follow us. Like I said, we post regularly baby sleep tips, feeding tips. It's all evidence-based, it's all attachment-based. My colleague posts baby wearing tutorials all the time. Yeah, come join us. That's what I hang out more on Instagram than I do on Facebook. So if Instagram's your jam, come join me. I'm also going to start doing live Q&As every week or two until my baby comes, and then I will try. I'm not sure how much maternity I'm going to take, but yeah, come join us. I would also really appreciate your feedback on this webinar. So either pop something in the chat box to me now, or in the document that you received with all the information for joining the webinar, there's also a link in there to the page for the replay, the handout that goes with the webinar, and there will be a section at the bottom there to leave feedback. That page currently isn't open. I was waiting to finish the webinar, and then I'll pop it on there all together. So I would check back there tomorrow if you would like to leave me any feedback. And my last request is, just remember Ochre Baby. If you do come up against sleep challenges, I'd love to help you when the time comes, but also trust your instincts. And I just hope you guys got a lot from this webinar. So thank you for watching. I'm going to have one last look at that chat box before I end here. Here we go. There are questions. Do you know of any products that are safe for bed sharing? Okay, so no, essentially. Bed share, if you're going to bed share, you need to make sure you're on a firm, flat surface. Baby is on the same surface as you. So any of these products that are like mini bassinets or Nests or anything like that that you would have in the bed with you, I don't believe that any of those are technically safe, although that said, different countries will have different guidelines around safety of baby products. I yeah, I wouldn't recommend any products for bed sharing. I would recommend this book if you want to know more about it. And like I said, this information is all in the handout. Look at the Lullaby Trust and look at La Leche League's Safe Sleep 7. They go into much more detail than I am able to about setting up the sleep space to be safe for you to have baby in bed with you. Will the downloadable be resent? It expired before I got it. So I think if you go to the email that you originally got when you signed up, the link to the downloadable will take you to a page where you can resend a new link. Ali, if you have trouble with it, just email me or find me on Instagram and message me, or Facebook actually, and I will just send you that information manually. But there is definitely a way of resending the information after it's expired if you go through your emails. I hope that answers your question. But yeah, just message me if you have any issues with it and I can send it to you. So if that's everyone's questions, then I'll just say thank you again for watching. And I look forward to connecting with you all in the future.